Remember the second phase in which I mentioned that we were about to optimize working capital? Let's have a look into what I mean by this. So usually it works like this. First, you calculate historic KPIs for working capital. So days inventories outstanding, days sales outstanding, days payables outstanding, which come with some interpretation at hand. So let me give you some examples here. Let's say for DIO, we had in inventory 5 t-shirts. And in that period that we consider, let's say it's just 1 day, which is not common. It's usually something like 30 days, a month or something like that. We had, 1 t-shirt and material expenses, so that we bought kind of, and the period, it's 1 day. So in this case, DIO would be 5 t-shirts divided by 1 t-shirt, which gives us 5 times 1 day. So 5 times 1 day is 5 days. That would be our DIO here. And this just means that, how long does it take us to sell off our inventory? 5 days, assumably. Because, we have those 5 t-shirts in store. We assume that we replenish with 1 t-shirt each day. And that, means that we can assume that we will sell off those 5 t-shirts in 5 days. Of course, it could be different. It's just an indication. But that's kind of the idea of this KPI. Next, we have days sales outstanding. So how long does it take us to collect our receivables? This is not that complex either. So we take our trade receivables, divide them by sales, and multiply with the days in the period. So let's say the days in the period were just 1 day. We had some trade receivables of, let's say 10, and we sold 2 a day. So that would give us 5 times 1 day, so 5 days. And the interpretation would just for that, we have 10 outstanding trade receivables and we make sales of 2 a day. And this means that it will take us 5 days to collect our receivables. So the logic again here is just to infer something. So given that we have sales of 2 and trade receivables of 10, we implicitly assume that we have those trade receivables of 10 because we're selling 2 each day, and thus it probably takes us 5 days to collect our receivables. So that's the idea here. Also works the other way around, so not just for stuff that we sell, but also for stuff that we buy. So in terms of trade payables, how long until we pay for our stuff? Say we had trade payables of 10 and material expenses of 5. So trade payables, say 10 t-shirts, and now it's not t-shirts but euro, but let's say, so 10 t-shirts divided by 5 t-shirts that we buy each day if the period is 1 day long. So this just means that, apparently we pay every other day, so every second day for our stuff, because otherwise we wouldn't have trade payables of 10 when we purchase each day 5 t-shirts. And now as a second step, the idea is that we apply optimizations to those KPIs. So for example, we could reduce our inventories because, it may just work out that we do not, bind as much capital in inventories and rather use it for something else. For example, we may collect our receivables faster by reducing the terms of payment, or we could just kind of pay later if that's, working out with our suppliers. So these would be exemplary optimizations to those KPIs. Things that you will naturally look into in a restructuring project or any other corporate finance project in that case. So for example, this is also something that's common to do if you do a levered buyout. The PE will naturally look into working capital, benchmark this against the industry average, and see if it's, underperforming, and if that's the case, usually there's something you can do to improve it. This is beneficial not only, in terms of value creation, as we will see on the next slide, but also in terms of liquidity. Because, if you pay later, that's certainly simply beneficial for your liquidity situation. So next, we should derive the balance sheet items to profit from those optimizations. And the formulas we have on the right-hand side here on the slide, it's just a rearrangement of what we saw on the left side. Here, just as a side note, make sure not to introduce any circular references into the model by doing this. It's something that just commonly happens because, DIO, for example, is a function of the inventories. And if inventories become a function of DIO, well, then you have circular reference. So here it kind of doesn't happen, of course, if you use the target values. So for example, you reduced, I don't know, DIO from, I don't know, 30 to 25 or something like that. So in this case, it wouldn't be a problem because DIO star or asterisk would just be a constant and then you don't have a circular reference. But in case this happens to you when you build the model, just watch out for this. Use the target value a constant in that case. Do not make this a circular reference by this. If you will want to still link it to the DIO, then use the previous period's value, so DIO of t in this case, not t plus 1, and then it should work out for you. So as these are all just rearrangements, I don't think I need to go through each of them in detail. The idea just is to derive the balance sheet items now from the optimized KPIs and, well, the other stuff that you need based on what you get in the formula.